Hey everyone, today we're looking at a lesser known but very powerful AWS service. In just a few easy to follow steps, we will show how to migrate almost every SQL database to different targets, no matter if it's in the cloud or on-premise. This includes NoSQL databases, CSV files, or other SQL databases. Hi, I'm Flo from floprodev.com. I've been in the cloud space for many years working on production setups with both AWS and Microsoft Azure. In order to replicate databases, we have to take 4 steps. First, we'll create a DMS replication instance. This is an EC2 virtual machine which will run the migration. Then we need a source and a target endpoint, including IAM roles with the proper permissions. And finally, we'll create the migration task. In this video, we'll demonstrate how to accomplish the migration of an RDS Aurora database to S3 and then to DynamoDB. In the AWS console, go to DMS and Replication Instances. Hit Create Replication Instance. Choose an appropriate machine size. We recommend starting small, as you can always scale up if the replication is too slow. After that, we can choose if we want to deploy to a single availability zone or multiple. AWS recommends multi-AZ for production workloads. In any case, you should match the setting of your source and target. If there are only single AZ, then there is no need to oversize the DMS instances. We'll leave the allocated storage at 50 GB. This will be used to store logs and caching transactions. In most cases, 50 should be sufficient. Next, make sure you choose an appropriate VPC that is able to access both your source and target. The public accessible option will assign a public IP to the instance and can be used when replicating from or to databases outside of the VPC. If they're on-prem, for instance. Then hit Create. After that, go to Endpoints and select the RDS instance. In our case, that is an Aurora instance. The access settings depend on how your database is secured. For this demo, we're using manual settings with a username and password. Note that in most cases, AWS Secret Manager is a more secure option as it provides better support for key rotation. Next, we'll create an S3 bucket for DMS to replicate the database to. Default settings are fine. In order for DMS to be able to access, go to IAM and create Role. Choose DMS from the use cases and hit Next. We will add Amazon S3 full access permissions. Note that we recommend creating a custom policy that has access to your specific bucket only. Now copy the resource name of the role and head over to DMS. Click Create Endpoint and choose Target Endpoint. Select S3 from the drop-down and paste in the RN we copied. Fill in the desired bucket name and folder. Next, go to your security groups in the VPC management and select the security group of the RDS instance. Hit Edit Inbound Rules. We'll select the CIDR block of the entire VPC as we placed our replication instance in the same network. Alternatively, you can create rules that point specifically to all the replication instances only. To test if the connection works, we can go back to DMS and select our endpoint. Select the Connections tab and hit Test Connections. Pray to the AWS gods that the status will switch to Successful. Now go to Database Migration Tasks and create a task. Select the source and target endpoints we created. In the task settings, we have the option to decide what happens to the target table if one already exists. We'll stick to the default to drop tables on target. Below that, we can define what to do with binary large objects, or LOBs. By default, they are limited to 32 kilobytes. When using S3 as a target, we could increase this substantially, whereas for a DynamoDB target, we'd be limited to 400 kilobytes. Further down, you can turn on CloudWatch logs, which is I would recommend to always do unless you're extremely cost sensitive and don't want to pay for the log storage. We're able to specify the severity levels that are being transferred to CloudWatch for 5 different stages during the migration. When debugging problems, you can increase it all the way to detailed debug. For this demo, we'll leave it to default. Next, we need to define table mappings. Add a new selection rule and select Enter Schema. We'll enter the name of our demo database schema and table. You can add as many selection rules as you like, and either including or excluding specific schemas and tables. Even individual columns can be filtered. We'll skip transformations for now. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video about that. Below that, we get the option to enable a pre-migration assessment run. This would let us know if there are any problems before running the actual migration. And finally, we'll leave the automatically on create option selected to run the migration immediately. Now, hope for the best, and if the tables weren't too nasty for DMS, we'll see the status change to running and eventually to load complete. To migrate to DynamoDB, we can go over the same steps as before. Create an IAM role, and this time give it access to DynamoDB. For the migration task, we can use the same settings as before. In the Dynamo console, we now see two tables, one for exceptions and another one containing our RDS table. This has been Flo from FloProDev. Subscribe and check out my website for more.